Hi class, this is Dr. Zukas. I want to welcome you to Journalism 227, Writing for News Media. This course is going to be so great and so applicable to all of you. I've read your discussion posts and I see you're interested in electronic media, broadcasting, public relations, sports journalism. And what we're going to learn in here is really news writing fundamentals and media writing fundamentals that are applicable for all of those different career paths, even strategic communications like advertising and public relations and whatnot. We'll learn Associated Press style, which is one of those textbooks that you got. Actually, it's not a textbook, it's a manual. They call it the Media Bible because that's how we communicate through text and speaking from scripts to our large audiences, people from all across the US who have different backgrounds, different dialects, say bubbler or water fountain, all that stuff. So what we'll learn in here is going to be so great and really helpful for all of you, no matter your trajectory. I think I've got the audio glitch fixed here. There seem to be tech troubles on the campus network today, but I think we should be all set. Hopefully it won't happen again. Not the best first impression, but I hope you've gotten up and running on the readings for the week. And I see, as I said, people posting discussions, so that's terrific. So I will be posting announcements and things to the class on Canvas from now on. So I've sent out some emails just in case people aren't quite, getting into the Canvas yet and adapting, but I will solely really be putting important things in the announcements each week. All right. Little clarification too. I will, of course, already have posted all of our notes for this semester. So I've got all the slides and things all set up and ready to go. Those are great for studying, for looking through, preparing for exams, finding specific things you remember, like, oh, what was that news value or something? Oh, let me go check this slide and like that. There's, you can click in there for some audio. You can also click on some links, some hyperlinks to explore some examples and things there. This, what I'm doing right now, is my lectures. So I'll post one of these at least every week. And this is me talking to you in real time, checking in on maybe some assignments and things, but going through, but actually I'll post about assignments and whatnot in a text form in the Canvas announcement so that you can work on that. But then I'll really be having these lectures as a way you can sit back, listen, and watch the lecture and absorb, right? Really kind of enjoy the storytelling, my storytelling and teaching, and then be able to apply that. So that's kind of how I'm hoping that these tools will work for you. They've worked really well in the past. We do have a meeting time in class, but we will not be meeting as an entire group during that time. It is a reserved time so that you can help organize maybe several classes you're taking and maybe several remote. I found this helpful for a lot of students in the pandemic. They're taking a few online classes, and having a set time helps them reserve that so that they can dedicate that time to the course. We will be taking quizzes and exams during those class times, so they will open up and they will close. So there are times when you do need to actually be online and in Canvas. We will have some group work, maybe some projects and things. But again, that's why we have that class time, so you could meet in person or over WebEx. So thank you all for your discussion posts. It's great learning about you. And I also wanted to introduce myself a little bit here. Of course, my name is Dr. Keith Zukas. And I'm teaching not only this course, but I also teach a practicum class with the Royal Purple newspaper that I advise. I've also taught sports journalism. That'll be coming up again next year. The journalism capstone class, reporting for news media, and also other general comm courses like public speaking and cross-cultural comm. So I really love teaching and advising the Royal Purple newspaper. We'll be at the Involvement Fair next week if you want to stop by and check it out. And we'll have a recruitment meeting in McCutcheon Hall, room 113, next week as well. on the 15th at 7 o'clock if you want to join us there to get some information and think of joining. I'm also the advisor for the professional communication fraternity that we have for the communication department. And I'll be having a recruitment meeting for that and information again at 7 o'clock, but on September 22nd, and that'll be over in Heidi Hall, room 100. In that communication fraternity, it's open to males and females. We'll focus on resume building, applying for scholarships, getting internships, the job hunt, and have a lot of guest speakers. So it should be a great professional organization, meeting just about once a month. So a great resume line and a great resume builder. So that's my teaching and organizations. I do research and media coverage of the energy and environmental fields and how those work together. I was inspired by that topic as a journalist and continue that research today. And then my service, I'm on several committees and scholarship committees as well, and the Kettle Moraine Press Association, which is a Southern Wisconsin and Northern Illinois association for us to offer scholarships and training and summer camps for high school journalism students. So I'll be having one next summer as well, and I will need some college level camp counselors. So hit me up at the end of the year if you're interested in that. Let's move right along here. I want to give us a general introduction to communication today, kind of a little bit of inspiration and get us excited, and especially since several of us are interested in different types of communication and of media writing or reporting. Often I will, a lot of my history in the profession is in journalism and news and editing as a journalist or editor, but as I said, it is really applicable to so many other fields. And so while a lot of the textbook and maybe a lot of my examples are based there, we will have some examples in advertising and public relations and whatnot. I have worked in advertising for a magazine, and I've done public relations for a publishing company. I was an event coordinator. I was a strategic communication manager for digital marketing. So I too have some various experience in the field, and am happy to talk about those as well. So I'd like us to first start with kind of a philosophical question about fish. So do you think fish know that they're swimming in water? If we look at this picture here and we think about this goldfish, maybe they don't have a very high level of intelligence. We might think, do they know? Do they realize it, right? They're surrounded by it. They're born in it. Are they aware of it? So we're going to come back to this question about what do we think of fish swimming in water. From there, let's do a little bit of a quick activity, kind of starting off fun here for our lectures. Go ahead, draw a rectangle, or you can visualize one if you don't have a pencil with you or a tablet to draw on or write on. But draw a rectangle, and in that, I want you to draw the back of a $1 bill. So the non-Washington side of that $1 bill. Okay, you could pause if you want to try that yourself and try to find all the things and remember what is on that. The traditional 20th century $1 bill. Did it look something like this? Well, maybe you got the ones, maybe the United States of America at the top, or the $1, maybe the In God We Trust, right? I think those are pretty big, but a lot of it we don't know, right? Well, why am I asking you about this? Well, I want us to do what's called a media analysis. I want us to look at what are the literal and metaphorical ways that we can analyze this communication, this message, this little newspaper in our pocket. So currency, right, is actually literally one of the oldest forms of mass communication, right? Like through Greek coinage. These often have messages, propagandist messages talking about who they are, what they're saying, what their civilization was like, and how people should treat them or think about them. Here's an example, the Owl of Athens. Here we have Athena on the left, known as the goddess of wisdom, the owl also representing that. If you've studied Greek literature or history, you might recall Athens was a place of culture, of art, and philosophy and learning. And those are the symbols on here, right? Wisdom and cultural growth. Really, really cultural hub. Here we have something very different, right? So we have a stern-looking leader, right? Looks like could be a Caesar. We've got daggers and helmets, right? We're seeing, right, more of a war state, right? Maybe like those Sparta movies that we see on in the theaters. Here's our first American $1 bill with some similar items on there to what we have today, but also some differences, right? Looks very traditional. It does look historic, doesn't it? Compared to our modern dollar bill, we can kind of think about some different unique characteristics. I'll point a few out here. We've got some magic 13s. We can think about what that means, right? Any guesses? Yeah, the 13 colonies. We've got some key symbols, the all-seeing eye, some arrows, an olive branch. We've got some English and Latin inscriptions. Does anyone speak Latin here? So what do these mean? We can't get over the past? No. But maybe we see ourselves as united with those words. We have some classical civilizations influencing us. We're guided by 18th century founders like George Washington or Adams. Maybe we're blessed by a higher power that in God we trust. That we're a new movement for the world with that all-seeing eye. And we're bearers of peace with that olive branch, but a strong nation able to fight if needed. So metaphorically, we're walking around with all these little newspapers in our pockets, but most of us really don't know what they mean, and we probably take money for granted nowadays, just charging everything. It's not unlike our experiences of media and many forms of communication where we engage in them, but we don't actively think about how we should construct our messages. What's the best way to really be effective? And similarly, when we receive messages, often our guard is down and we accept them without thinking critically or analyzing them. So there's a great philosopher, scholar, Harold Laswell. He's a sociologist, and he came up with this question we always need to ask when we're doing a media analysis. Who says what, to whom, through what channel, and with what effects? So who made this currency? And what is it? What does it mean? Who is the audience? Who is the target market? What's the type of media being used? And what are the intended effects? Were there unintended effects? So we can break this down. Who gets to speak? Well, not me. I'm not on the bill. Being a president helps a lot. Being male is essential for paper money in the US, but we do have some females on coinage. Almost all white, and you gotta be dead. What's being said? Well, there is lots of business about the ancient past and our history, semi-religious, war, peace, our symbols like the eagle. Who are we speaking to? Well, of course, people with money, Americans, but also people in other countries, and some other countries do accept American currency. And we can think about, do we accept all the messages? Maybe some of us have different faiths. So when we're looking at these, we want to think about these speakers, the constructors, but also the listeners. All of these folks are part of that communication process. And we're going to contemplate these questions throughout the semester as we learn to construct media messages in a really meaningful way to get those intended effects and not the unattended ones. So, what is this about? Well, it's media literacy. You are the fish. Are you swimming in mass media? Now we'll move on to some more history now about our industry. We need to know where we've come as a media industry and news and journalism to know where we're going to go. So let's explore some of those foundations. Well, journalism comes from our need to know what's going on. especially with those in power and people shaping our societies and our world. We can think back to ancient times and how uh, um, civilizations grew and democracy emerged from Switzerland and France and Europe and really was inspiration, right, to ultimately, right, cause us a revolution and people leaving countries to come for the freedom of speech and freedom of religion and really, right, inspires us, right, to be able to receive communication and to speak what we want. So journalism and democracy has always been tied very closely together since these initial foundations. You might recall responses to church rules and regulations. Martin Luther demanding that the Latin Bible be transcribed into German so that everyday citizens could read it. Governments, right, not allowing printing or putting high taxes on printing presses so that only they, right, could be able to send out messages and pamphlets and information. So the need to learn, to grow, to read, to be informed really came about, especially through politics, but this need for freedom and freedom of the press and freedom to communicate. And ultimately now today we connect that with democracy. Several scholars, writers, politicians have talked about how important this freedom of information is. Here are a few great quotes that I like and statements and examples. Even Jefferson, in other quotes, he says he would choose the newspaper over politics. This all comes to fruition in our First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Well, let's break this down. There's a lot here. So it's saying the government, they can't keep us from practicing the religion that we want and exercising it, right? That's a communication, right? Gathering in groups, holding services, talking about it, right? You think back to, right, learning about Thanksgiving and the Pilgrims, right? Coming to America, right, for freedom of religion and many other people. And various types of freedoms so that they can speak about other topics too. But religion being very important back at this time in 1791. Reading further, that Congress or that government can't abridge that free speech. So they can't suppress it, can't censor it, and especially the press, so the kind of the organization of communications. And people have the right to assemble. We have the right to protest or the right to hold an event, right? If it's peaceable, if it's peaceful, right? That's the key word there. And you know what? We can even complain. This last sentence says, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances, right? So to say, hey, there are some things that aren't working here, and let's explore them, and let's improve our society, improve our democracy. So here we're saying speech is good, speech is important, this is how we grow. In fact, it's okay to assemble if you're doing it peacefully. It's actually important to bring up problems so that we can improve as a society. These types of actions are looked at as actually important and foundational to democracy. Other people might see today a protest happening on the street or say, oh, they're blocking traffic and they're disrupting society. Well, in fact, it says in our First Amendment that people have the right to do that, and it's encouraging them to do so. The very First Amendment, that this is how we make progress. This leads to that progressive era. There was great concern in the 1800s about corruption in big business and government. And at the citizen level, people looking out for themselves, but not really connected to their communities and society. So people during this time wanted to improve citizenship. Rationalize society and government, get out the hyperbole and the sensationalism, and also getting that out of communications. So yellow journalism is a term for that sensationalist type of writing about maybe crime and sex and drugs and, really entertainment, right, kind of gossipy types of things, but not things that would help you improve yourself or your life or your community. This also wanted to improve public relations and prohibit or stem propaganda. Uh, Moving from the 1800s and then early 1900s, of course, with the world wars, there was lots of propaganda from all countries, right, calling citizens to action for those world wars, and people became very wary of that and worried about these messages that might be you know, strategically, right, thinking for people, right, influencing how people think. And so, what do we do about these? Well, we professionalize communication, and that's what we've got here today, and that's where you're at here. So we professionalize journalism. We have methods that you'll learn. How do we go about gathering facts and evidence and interviewing sources on different sides of an issue with different beliefs and different views? There are certain methods that we follow so that we do it correctly and accurately. And we've established journalism schools to do that. So journalism is an important social institution today. We do have a common set of values and practices through various types of organizations and societies, like the Public Relations Society of America, or perhaps the Society of Professional Journalists. So they help ensure that we're following these practices. We now have public recognition, respect, and even legal political protections. If you are a financial journalist, you can't be prosecuted for insider trading because it's your job to know what's happening in finances and in the stock market. Actually all states have some form of what's called a shield law to protect journalists from revealing their sources. So it is a special field and as well a special social institution. We're often called the fourth estate, right? So there's the three estates: executive, judicial, and legislative branches or estates. And journalism is so close. We're following those things, and we're really representing the people. That's what we're supposed to represent in this pie is the fourth estate, media, finding issues and things that represent the people, that are independent from government and but however are close to it and can report on it. So we go through these progressive reforms in the early 1900s, and then they really start being applied to a lot of the new technologies that emerge in the mid and late 1900s. The Radio Act says, hey, we only have so much space on our electromagnetic spectrum airwaves for radio to be, going through the air. We can only have so many stations. So it can't all be advertising and soap opera stories. We need some news. We need some good public information to help people to improve themselves and communities. And so television follows a similar model. Uh, and so we do have this American media model that's a for-profit system, but we have to have this public interest. So they are private companies, and we do, of course, have the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, but they do try to take a hands-off approach as long as we are operating with these good ethics and these public interests. In the 1930s, this really is important with broadcast news over the airwaves of radio, and then later network TV, broadcast TV in the 50s and 60s. Again, lots of entertainment on these the airwaves for TV and radio, but they have to have that half hour for the dinner time to get some news, get your daily diet of news, your apple a day. Late 20th century, cable takes off, right? So now we've got tons of channels. There's no scarcity on that electromagnetic frequency anymore. And plus, we're paying for that cable TV. It's not free anymore. So now you don't have people or these TV stations on cable. They don't have to have that news mandate, that public interest. They could you could have a news organization with a certain view on events. You can have your purely entertainment channels or pure sports channels. So there's no longer that mandate. You can even maybe swear and things like that and not be prosecuted by the government because people, by paying for that, you're agreeing to accept that content. CNN was the very first cable news network to emerge on the scene in 1980 and really became famous, of course, for being 24 hours, the first 24-hour channel of live TV, and for doing that for the first Iraq War. Now, of course, other news organizations emerge as well, and with cable. And so, oh my gosh, we've got broadcast TV news and we've got cable news. Well, we can't all be giving the same package, right? Delivering the same content. So they need to differentiate themselves. So we do have different types of news products. Typically, our network broadcast news is very same, very objective, showing different all sides of the story and giving just the facts. But we do have those more specialized news channels in cable that do offer a different product. And those are for those news junkies or those people who are really asserted in their beliefs. And so we need to know what those are. And that, of course, goes double as much on the web, because there are so many news websites, and some that claim to be news websites but actually are blogs or actually for-profit organizations or political think tanks. So online, we need to be really careful about checking out those about pages and seeing what these organizations actually are. So what do we want journalism to do for us today? Well, we still want it to be a public forum. We want to talk about what's happening, good and bad, and involve the public, right? Be engaged. We do serve as an agenda setter. That means, what are the important issues of the day, of the month? What's about to happen that we can prepare everyone for? We need to be ahead of the Joneses, right? Ahead of the times. We need to still be that watchdog for the public, especially in such times when now we are living in a global economy and global issues that seem to be happening a world away. There's no way we could know what's happening. Even in Washington, we rely on news and information, and again, to better ourselves and our community, so that we can improve problems and find solutions. Now, there are dangers in journalism. That fight for democracy is still happening today, both here, as you may have seen or read or heard about journalists getting caught in some of the protests we've seen across the country, but also getting caught in real wars overseas. And so we are still fighting for freedom of information, freedom to speak and also to receive. I've traveled to Singapore a few years ago for a conference, and they have a different Google. And I couldn't go to all the websites I wanted to. It's the same with China and Russia, as you may know. So still we are, as a globe and even in our country in certain ways, fighting for that free speech to speak and to be heard and to be able to hear. Here's an example. You can find this film on Canvas as a file and the story here at this link, but go ahead, check that out. It's actually, I do a cameo in it talking about James Foley, a terrific journalist and inspiration from the Milwaukee area. He went to Marquette and unfortunately was beheaded in Syria by terrorists while on assignment covering news there. So again, fighting for free speech and a free press for democracy. Now, So it's up to you. You're the future journalists. You're the future media workers of the world. We need to decide, what do we want the future of news, the future of public relations, of advertising, of broadcasting to look like? And we need to work together as an industry. We're doing an important job. We don't want to ever have people shooting the messenger when we're delivering content. It's a hard job that we do. We need to find facts, interview sources, put it all together, double check everything, and present it in a way that is still engaging, because we're competing with entertainment programming. So it's not an easy job, but we can work together and find a great way to do it. Of course, news programs depend on advertisers and advertising. Often public relations officials and workers send out press releases to news organizations, letting them know what events are about to happen, and connecting them with sources and content. So we are, as a media industry, working together, whether that's for informative or strategic or entertainment communications. So we get to decide.
So we come to